This video is sponsored by the Foggy Dew, Dublin's legendary pub, located beside the Central Bank and Temple Bar. Come in for great nights, pints and supporting metal. Shout out to our other sponsor, Helio Gas Detection.
I laid my life down.
Hey everybody, Richie here from the Metal Podcast. We've got a really good special one tonight for everybody. We've got Donnchadh of Wacken Metal Battle Ireland. Welcome to the show for the first time, Donnchadh.
Hey Richie, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on. I've got Aidan from Aesect.
Cheers, Richie. Thanks for having me on again.
How are you, buddy? All good?
Yeah, good man, good.
Great
Excited for this one.
Great seeing you. And I've got Letty also of the Smash and Skull Sessions, Metal Cell, video vlogs, the whole lot. It's good to have you back on, Letty.
Yeah, I'm back. You couldn't keep me away for long.
Yeah, you've been coasting it. I had to drag her onto the Metal Cell.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is terrible. But the reason why we're on tonight obviously is because Wacken Metal Battle Ireland is coming up. It's only a few weeks away now, lads. Really, isn't it? Or Donnchadh, maybe you could.
Yeah, coming up on Saturday, April 18th in Fibber McGee's in Dublin. So I think it's about 4 weeks or something.
Yeah. That'd be about right. And we need to kind of just delve into it and figure out what makes it so different to other festivals. And I suppose really out of the whole kind of festival circuit in Europe, Wacken and Hellfest would probably be the two main ones that every, I suppose, normal metaler would know. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
I think so, yeah. I was thinking about this today. I mean, I went to my first Wacken in 2003. And for the first few years, actually, you couldn't go directly from Ireland, I think, to Hamburg. You had to go through Stansted. So the flight from Stansted definitely was to Hamburg Lübeck. Was like almost entirely full of metalheads. The whole plane, maybe 10 sort of normal people would call them. And then after a few years, there was a direct flight from Ireland, and same thing again, almost entirely full of Irish people going over. So at the time, I think Wacken had sort of established itself as the big European metal festival, kind of taken over from the original Dynamo Festival, not the one that's going now.
Dynamo, yeah.
Yeah. And it was really starting to explode. I think it was at about maybe 50,000 people per day at the time. So it's 85 now, and generally kind of sells out every year. And they've kind of extended it from, I think it was originally 2 days, and it kind of starts, it's almost a week, like, because people start arriving on kind of the Sunday or the Monday. The campsite is definitely full, as Willow will tell you, by the Tuesday. And people are just there for a week to party. The music starts on the Wednesday, full program until, sometime early in the hours of Sunday morning. And the scale of it, yeah, it's pretty enormous. I think it's a little bit bigger than Hellfest. I think somebody said Hellfest was about 65,000 a day, so Wacken's 85,000. And what the scale does for you then is just gives you a completely different type of atmosphere. So maybe not everybody's cup of tea, particularly I think as people get older, they don't want to be at a big festival walking everywhere, too many crowds and that kind of thing. But the production levels that you can have when you have something that big. So if you stand at the very back of the arena area at Wacken when one of the big headline bands is on the Thursday or the Friday or the Saturday night, and they kind of run the show across the two main stages. So the band will be on one stage, but the production will be across the kind of two stages in terms of the lighting, the screens, the lasers in the sky. and 85,000 people, singing along, if it's Iron Maiden doing the woes or whatever. So it's just the scale of it really, I guess, is kind of unequaled at the moment. Anyway, I'm sure somebody will kind of replicate it at some stage. Um, I think the other thing that's quite unique about it is kind of the cultural side of things. So it has a very different vibe. Like I've been to Hellfest, I've been to Graspop, I've been to Download. Has a very different kind of vibe in terms of the type of people that attend and particularly the vibe in the campsite. It's almost like a holiday for people every year. They bring almost their kind of whole house. They set up these little kind of makeshift structures at the campsite. Guys have built like a little miniature castle out of timber and cardboard and whatever
Yeah.
they could buy. They'll have their own sound systems, their own bars. Like some of the kind of areas, like guys will come with like big groups of their whole friends and everything. It'll be almost like, I don't know, hundreds of little festivals in one. And a lot of those people would have been going to Wacken for 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
depending. So it's kind of taken off in terms of the commercial side of things in recent years. Bigger bands, it's on German TV. A lot of celebrities kind of turn up there, that kind of thing. But it's still a lot of the old school kind of underground metal crowd as well, which is kind of cool because it mixes the two together. I think the organizers kind of have a vision for it as a sort of a heavy metal Glastonbury, where
Mm.
it's not just about, the headline bands, but it's about the culture, it's about the history, the heritage, and celebrating, metal as as a music genre, but also a kind of I suppose a cultural force in the world and a part of people's lives.
Yeah. It's mad that you saw it grow so much, Donnchadh. Something like that for me was Hellfest when we started going originally. And it just got so big and so popular that I think a lot of people like myself felt pushed out of it because, the bigger scale, the more humanity you're dealing with, the more cues and stuff. So, I kind of jumped on to Bloodstock and then jumped on to Brutal Assault. But certainly the way you're painting it, it's actually sounds really cool still.
Yeah, yeah. And like I go to a lot of festivals. I was in Greece last weekend or the weekend before it at Up the Hammers, which is a very small, indoor true heavy metal festival. I'll be at Keep It True in Germany next month, which is, a very small, again, true heavy metal, old school, traditional heavy metal festival. And they're like, minuscule compared to Wacken, and they have their own vibe, and the size kind of plays into it and it suits it. And you kind of, if you go repeatedly over a number of years, you kind of know everybody there as well,
Mm.
or the faces. And that's very different. Like something like Wacken or Hellfest can be quite sort of impersonal. But at the same time, as I said, the kind of the benefits of scale in terms of what it gets you in terms of production, the big
Yeah,
acts,
yeah.
things like the laser show. So what they do now, on the last night of Wacken to announce next year's lineup is they have this big laser, or not laser show, a drone show, I should say.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, amazing. Thousands of little mini drones, forming the shape of the names of the bands for next year.
Wow.
And like they pause the festival for 15 minutes or whatever while that happens, everybody watches it. So it's like it's things like that, you can't do it at a smaller scale.
No, no. So Letty, you haven't dipped your toes into the festival circuit yet. I know for a fact. Is Donnchadh selling you a vacuum?
See, I haven't been to a festival yet, but as much as I'd love to go to Wacken, the lineup over the last couple of years hasn't really pushed me.
Okay, okay, fair
I
enough.
think was it Scorpions last year that was one of the headliners?
I think it was Scorpions was
That's this year.
the year before. Um, so many years of working now and getting my lineups mixed up.
Of
But
course, of
like
course.
I understand totally what you mean because it has like as I said, they go for the kind of the heavy metal Glastonbury where it's not, it's not Hellfest, where Hellfest is like a fully stacked kind of lineup of everything that's sort of current and new and kind of trendy, and a lot of the new kind of buzz bands in the scene, and all of the different types of genres represented. It could be a festival that you could hold, in America or, anywhere else in the world, whereas Wacken, the lineup tends to be almost very tailored for a specific type of a German audience. And there would be a lot of bands that would, play almost kind of like a headline slot or high up on one of the stages, that you never have heard of outside of Wacken. But they're sort of very important within the scene in Wacken, and they've kind of broadened that out as well. Like, it's not just metal now; it's kind of hard rock, punk, a lot of kind of folk, I guess, as well, kind of coming into it. So yeah, you won't get a Hellfest or a Grass Pop, or a Resurrection Fest type lineup. It is a bit of an acquired taste, and that's where the kind of the experience comes into it as well. Whereas it's not just about the bands.
Yeah, yeah. Aidan, you obviously played it. Had you gone to it as a punter, or were you like me, always wishing to go there? And
Yeah, because I've done a few of the festivals across, but I've never done the Wacken one. So I've been to Grass Pop twice. I've done
yeah,
obviously Bloodstock before. I was lucky enough to be able to play both
that's
Bloodstock and
right.
Wacken. But Wacken is like Donnchadh has described it so well. You can definitely tell he's been there a few times. He, like hit the nail on the head there, man. Like it's just the scale of it is massive. You can go from one end and it's almost like you're at Bloodstock, and then you can walk literally about 20 minutes on the other side, and it's almost like a different festival. They're taking on a different vibe. It's just incredible. So depending on whatever mood you're in, or whatever band you want to go see, that they're all there. There's so many. Like I saw, who did I see this year? Obituary, Warbringer, Papa Roach, Gravedigger. Like it was just such a variety of all the bands that were there. So even for some of the metal, or for some of the metal festivals, they kind of stick to almost mainly one genre, whereas this kind of goes across so many different genres, like so.
And probably established acts more so.
Yeah, yeah, and as Donnchadh said, some of the bands like Gravedigger for me is one of my bucket list bands. I
Yeah,
absolutely love them.
100%.
But they rarely come this side of the world, so it was really good to be able to see them there. So it was very exciting to see them on such a because they played on the main stage as well, so it was really good to see them there.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't think you'd ever get the chance to see that. So like you said, that they'd be quite big over there, but they wouldn't draw the crowd over here, I wouldn't say, so but it's really unique in that yeah, like they've got the Wasteland stages. I think, don't know how many stages is it? Was it 7?
It's actually, I think, about 10 or 11.
Is it? Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
like there's like little small stages hidden away. Even like in the backstage area, there's 2 stages.
Yeah, that's true.
There's
Actually,
the
yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I think it's about like over 200 acts in total across the whole week. So yeah, and it can be a bit of a challenge in terms of clashes. And last year there was quite bad mud, so I remember trying to get over to see King Diamond on the third stage,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was just like something out of a quest from the Lord of the Rings or something, just getting across the mud and the rain and the wind and everything. Uh, but I mean, that's all part of the crack as well. Like,
Yeah, I remember the night before we played was like probably the heaviest bit of rain. There was like 6 mil of rain in an hour, and the thunderstorm and the lightning storm. And over the tannoy, they put this is at like half 2, 3 in the morning. They were saying yeah, a heavy lightning storm coming. Everybody get out of your tents, find a car with their hazard lights on, and just get into it. So
What?
this was, yeah, the
Oh
night before
God.
we played. So it was
Jesus
3 o'clock
Christ
ish. So
almighty.
and that was for about an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, where that just every 5 minutes came over to tannoy. Get out of your tent, go find a camper van or a car. If you have space in your car, put your hazards on, accept people in, that kind of stuff. But nobody, see, the mud was so bad that nobody wanted to put people in their car and stuff, so most people didn't even get out of their tents. So it was just a lot of people just ran to like the shower block and like places like that. But I like I knew we were playing the next day, and we were on quite early. We were on at 11, I think it was, or half 11. But so I was conscious that I needed to get some sleep. So I was just earplugs went in, and I just kind of curled up on the wall, was trying to get to sleep. But we
Brilliant.
talking again about what Donegal brought up. He mentioned that people bring like a whole bar set up and like camper vans, and they pretty much make a little village, which is true. So we when we got there, we're just amazed at this guy's setup. And we were like, you know, we'll camp next to him because I'm sure there's loads of crack here, which was like a great thing, but also a terrible thing because the night before we wanted to play, he had a massive session. So it was like, and that went till like 3 or 4 in the morning. So even throughout this like warning, they were all just in there laughing their heads off and playing Enter
Fucking
Sandman at
hell.
the loudest you'd ever hear it. Like, so every night at about 2 in the morning, we were woken up to it must have been his nighttime song to say goodnight to everybody, but it was literally Enter Sandman at just crazy
For
volume,
fuck's
like
sake.
crazy volume. It was so fucking. It was
Brilliant.
later than some of the gigs, like, and that would just wake you up. You'd be like, "Fuck!"
Like,
But
I mean, for both of you, really, how does it feel to be connected with something on a global scale as Wacken? Like,
do you want
Do
to
you
go
want
first,
to, do
Donegal?
you want to go?
I can go. Yeah, look, for us, it was a dream come true for sure. Like, it's funny when you tell people that you played one of the biggest metal festivals in the world, and it doesn't register with them until you kind of mention some of the headliners that have,
yeah.
especially for people who aren't into the scene. Anyone who's into the scene knows instantly the gravitas that comes with playing with a festival like this. But anyone who doesn't, as soon as you mention the likes of Guns N' Roses or Papa Roach and stuff like that, their eyes are just like, what? You're kind
Yeah.
of going, well, like on the very same day that we played, a couple of hours later, Guns N' Roses played the next stage over, do you know? So it's a bizarre, yeah, it's great to have your name next to that, you know, as well, to be
Yeah.
able to tell that story. Although now, realistically, we were on a stage over here and there about 8 hours later on a different one because they played for like, what, how many hours that night? 4 hours or something.
Well,
Um,
I think you guys sounded better as well, just
yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah. Oh well, yeah. He wasn't. He started off well, but I think after an hour or so, it started to creep into uh, the Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse kind of territory. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but the rest of the band was pretty good, and that whole "Give Me Some Reggae" section was probably about 20 minutes long, I think. So we just see people kind of going, "Well, that's me done." But yeah, no, it was still we stuck around for a good while watching that. But as Donica mentioned, the mud was mental. Like my feet were dyed a different color by the end of it. I
Fucking
had to
hell.
like basically soak them in salts and stuff to try and get all the color of the mud out of my feet. It was just yeah, I can't describe just. You'd kind of have to have been there to see it, but it's just look back on some of the footage, and it was just crazy.
It has a particular type of mud that you wouldn't see other places. It's just really kind of like black and kind of sticky.
Okay.
And then in other places, it's I don't know, it almost like sort of flows on top of the ground.
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
So you get a muddy year, kind of maybe. It's hard to say now, I guess, with climate change, but kind of maybe 1 year in kind of four,
Okay.
and then you could also have like a scorching year where you've problem with dust. So it just that's outdoor
That was a big
festivals.
problem with Hellfest with me and Dust, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
asthmatic and that was like fucking a big
yeah.
no-no.
I spoke to Zamo from Killface, and he was telling us the year they went, it was just scorching. Like the heat was crazy, and that was the issue. They had the total opposite of us, so just the dust, and they had to wear like face coverings almost to stop breathing the shit in. Like, so I just thought it was really funny to go from one extreme and to share stories based on that. Like,
So Donica, how did you first get involved with the Irish branch of Metal Battle?
um, a bit of it is probably lost in kind of the sands of time or whatever or the sort of haze of alcohol maybe.
I like that.
Uh, so as I said, I went to Wacken first in 2003 and kind of went consistently for about 10 years. And at the time, I was involved in doing gigs in Ireland, one of which was, I don't know if you remember it, Richie, the DOD Day of Darkness Festival
Oh
in
my God, of
County
course I
Leash.
do. Yeah, yeah.
So
I
we
didn't
used
realise
to
that
kind
was
of,
you.
sorry?
I didn't realise there was a few of you involved in that. So you,
Yeah, there was like it was Carl Maher's kind of baby, but
yeah,
there was
Mr. Carl.
three others involved as well. So myself, Tim Johnson, the drummer in
Yeah,
Morning Beloved,
yeah.
and Mark Lee, who does Dublin Doomday and a few other things.
Brilliant.
So we used to get in touch when we'd be going over to Wacken and we get in touch with the organisers and basically say, look, we're festival promoters in Ireland, very different scale. Can we have access to the VIP backstage area so that we can kind of meet people, get in touch with bookers and stuff like that. Which was a genuine kind of intention, but also, you have nicer toilets and you have kind of sort of free booze and stuff back there. So we kind of got to know some of the people involved through that. And like Wacken, it's a bit of an industry. Like it doesn't just have the kind of promotion arm. Like they had, I think, a record label at the time, but they also had a booking agency. I think they still have. And we ended up they were booking Saxon at the time. We ended up doing Saxon in the Button Factory for them. And Thomas was managing Saxon at the time. He actually came over, so that kind of sort of cemented things a little bit as well in terms of
Okay.
the relationship. And then I think DOD had kind of come to an end. We were kind of into recession territory in Ireland there at kind of the end of, I guess, the noughties. But I was still going to Wacken, and it was a conversation kind of that happened somewhere in the kind of the backstage. I can't remember if I kind of suggested it, or they said, look, we have this thing and we want to do it in Ireland. But I was aware of the metal battle over there just from attending and going, and I thought it was a fantastic idea. And I really thought it was something that Ireland was kind of maybe missing out on in terms of taking the opportunity to have an Irish band play back. And so I just said I'd give it
100%.
a go. It was a lot smaller at the time. It was very kind of European focused. It's expanded hugely since. I can't remember the amount of countries at the time, but there are currently over 100 countries that participate in the battle around the world. So it's in
Oh,
every corner of the world. Europe, North America, South America, Central America, Asia, even Africa. So some countries compete on a kind of a standalone country basis, and then other countries form part of regions. So, like for example,
oh,
there's a
okay.
region in the Caribbean, there's a region for sub-Saharan Africa, which sounds kind of mental. It goes to show you that there is metal out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to kind of look under the rocks. Um,
Like alien life.
a bit, yeah, and that's one of the kind of the cool things as well. So I'll go over to Wacken, and I'll usually be involved in judging what is effectively the global final of the metal battle over there. And I'll get to see all of the different bands playing from all around the world. And it really, really is an education just seeing, the different interpretations of metal from around the world. I mean, a
Mm,
lot of, you get a lot of bands that will play, the sort of the staples, Trash, Dead or whatever. But what I find really interesting is the bands that bring sort of, their own kind of cultural
yeah.
kind of elements, be it instrumentation or storytelling or costumes or whatever. And you get, we've had some fantastic examples of that over the years, just how metal is interpreted in other countries
Mm.
around the world. So yeah, that was kind of how I got involved. Just got involved in doing it. Around the first one in 2011. I can't remember how many bands entered at the time. I think we had semi-finals and a final. And I don't know if you remember Cold War.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, who were a fantastic band. It's a shame they're not around. So they won it. They went over. They did a fantastic job. Went down really well. Um, I was a
So
bit worried.
for many of them now, for those that are listening and watching, a lot of them now are with Sensor.
Yeah, and I think Ancient Malice as well.
Ancient Malice, yeah,
Uh,
big shout out,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I was a bit worried about Trevor at the time because Trevor has all these just sort of tribal tattoos, and
yeah.
one of which is the sort of the swastika type, but it's a Buddhist
Mm.
symbol. And I do recall a couple of incidents of him sort of explaining to Jordan what it was.
Holy
Uh,
moly.
but they were all much more chilled out than I was. I was going, oh, this is going to go down the wrong way. We got, kind of kicked out. And like Trevor is the nicest guy that you
Yeah,
can you can
100%.
meet.
Yeah.
And a great guy to actually explain what it's all about. But their stage performance was brilliant. It was really cool for them, I think, as well. They had one of the guys who used to play in the band, Skinny, had passed away a number of years before that. So they actually brought his ashes with them and sprinkled some of them on the stage, so that
Wow.
Oh, wow.
he'd hear his spirit would be sort of with them. And that was kind of, that showed what it meant. So, that being the first year for me, kind of, it certainly made me think, look, this, really makes a difference, to bands, and it's an opportunity that Ireland should be taking part in. And, I'm kind of happy to help with that. And, even if I wasn't helping it with it, if somebody else was doing it, it's something that I would support.
Yeah, and it's got an incredible history of like great bands coming through. As you said, mentioned Cold War, Overwrought as well. This is all old school. Jesus, amazing. Andy now of Overwrought is obviously with Dowen. Zora, Animator, Risen Dread, Aura, and Aesect, just to name a few that have passed through. I just want to kind of know what you really look for as well, Donnchadh, in relation to finding these bands, and is it musicianship, stage presence, originality, or something else, or is it all combined probably?
Yeah, it is all combined. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is, you know, like Irish bands, we have some fantastic Irish bands here, and I think, even over the last sort of 20 years, it's changed enormously. The
Mm,
gap in the standard, I think, between bands in Ireland and, bands from other countries, has really closed.
that's great to hear.
But I always thought, and this is kind of from going to other kind of, maybe smaller festivals and things around Europe. If you're a band in continental Europe, I think you have a lot more opportunity to
Yeah,
hone your live show, because
correct.
there's a ton of, festivals and gigs you can play at almost every weekend if you want, just get in the van
Mm,
and go. And that's much harder for Irish bands.
yeah,
So I think we're a little bit, or have been traditionally a little bit kind of disadvantaged there. So like finding a band that has a certain standard of live show that can make the leap to the big stage. And it is a big stage. So the Metal Battle now at Wacken, it's on a big outdoor stage. It used to be in the marquee before. But that's, it probably looks easy. I'm sure Willow will tell you it's a very different kind of vibe, very different experience. To kind of to fill that stage, to command that space, to have a presence with the audience. You're, as I said, there's about 10 stages at Wacken, so you're kind of trying to capture people that are almost kind of passing by, going, because they haven't heard of any of the bands. They're going, who's playing here, and can you sort of grab their attention for a few minutes before they decide to go away and buy a burger or whatever it is. And some bands are much more able to do that than others. So the first thing would be ability to, I suppose, fill those boots, have a live presence that can translate to the big stage. A lot of bands are brilliant on record, but sort of under deliver when it comes to the live performance. Songs probably sounds basic, but that would be maybe the next thing. Bands that are good songwriters can write kind of catchy tunes, catchy riffs, that can again grab people's attention kind of quickly. It's not the kind of thing where, you have a band that does, I don't know, like a sort of, 15 kind of 18-minute kind of,
yeah.
track, and
Jazz Odyssey.
the audience
Next Dream
is
Theater.
struggling. Um, so there's a bit of an immediacy about it, and that's that probably sounds unfair to bands that do write
Or
longer
or
songs.
sludge or sludge favorites there. There's a few of them.
But I think it does matter, and the last thing would want is to see a band kind of going over and just going down badly. So of all the bands that have gone over, I need to go back and sort of check this, but like, so all the bands get scored over there by the judges. So every country who's taking part has a judge, and then Vacan has some of their own judges as well. All the judges score all of the bands. It all goes into a database, and they calculate who the winners are. But they also kind of give a ranking for all of the bands who've taken part. And I think, and I'm not just saying that because Willow's on, but I think Aesect have finished the sort of the highest of all of the Irish bands over the years. But that was just outside the top 10. We haven't had a top
Wow.
10 finishing band yet. Um,
Were we? I thought we were 10th or 11th, was it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it was around 11th.
Was it?
So
Okay, yeah, yeah. I remember
just
you telling me in the airport and being pretty chuffed when you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the highest." I was like, "Yeah, go on."
yeah, yeah, no, no, it is. I mean, because you think of the what is it, 32 or 34 bands that actually perform at the Metal Battle at Wacken, but I think the figure for entries, overall global entries last year was 11,000. So if you're kind of finishing kind of 10th and 11th out of
Fuck.
11,000 bands, that's hugely impressive. Um, but I would love to have a band that kind of cracks. I'd love to have a band that wins or finishes in the top five or cracks the top 10. So I'll definitely be sort of pointing to judges to bands that kind of stand out, have some element of originality.
Yeah.
Um, I always think a band that is maybe playing, as I said, one of the staples like Trash or Dead or Black. Sometimes those bands have a bit of a challenge in standing out, sounding different, sounding original, and kind of because what you'll have is if Ireland sends a trash band over, it could be one of four or five trash bands, all wearing sort of, denim vests and patches and bullet belts and stuff. And you come to the end of the metal battle at, on the second day, and somebody will say, "Oh yeah, I thought that trash band was really good," and you'll be like, "Well, which one was it?" So they
Mm.
kind of some of them can kind of blend into one. So a band that can stand out, a band that's different, will have an advantage as well. But overall, it's down to quality. You have to have the songs, you have to be able to perform them, and you have to be comfortable in front of an audience on a big stage.
Mm. Yeah, Letty, do you agree with all that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with all that. Like, if you're got like even some openers that I've seen for bigger bands, some of them stuck more than others. Like, I remember there was this one really terrible band. I can't remember the name of them even. They opened for Royal Blood. And they were just awful. They were terrible. Like, your one's monologue, she had it all written down on the set list, so she knew what to say.
Oh,
And the only part I could remember her saying was, "This song is about, I want to read a book." And that was the chorus, and that is all I remember of them.
fucking hell. And were they Irish
They were British.
or British? And to be supporting Royal Blood, like, fuck, that's a great
Yeah.
support to get. Wow, Jesus.
But
Yeah.
you wonder,
So,
can bands like that pay on to those kind of supports, lads? Do you know? You gotta wonder.
You do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It,
not,
do- it does happen.
yeah, it's not
You know,
unusual.
like a lot of tours, some of the opening bands will be buy-ons. Maybe the label or somebody else will put
Yeah,
up
they're
money
pushing
for them
them.
to get
Yeah.
on. Particularly when bands are kind of starting out. So yeah, it doesn't always come down to the quality. I think everybody's been at gigs where you're completely underwhelmed by the opening or the support acts.
Who's the
I think
worst
it's what
opener
it is.
you ever seen, Richie?
Um, as in, well, I obviously won't mention an Irish band. I've
Where
seen
did you see us
plenty.
open, Richie?
Yeah. No, there's been a lot, and there's also been, I've gone to a shit ton of festivals over the years, and sometimes you're just scratching your head at some of the bands that actually make it onto these festivals, and just absolutely are brutal. No stage presence. There's audible mistakes. I've even seen like a fucking singer fight with the guitarist in front of stage. I was just like, yeah, I've seen a lot. But like I'm just wondering there with you, Donnchadh, as well. Like, have you seen a shift in the genres coming through the competitions over the years?
Um, yeah, definitely. So like this year we had a really good number of entries. Like normally it's around kind of the 30 mark. This year was I think it was just shy of 50. I think it might have been 50, but one or two bands withdrew their entries, which sometimes happens. Um, and yeah, there was a really kind of good spread of bands. There's a lot of bands now playing kind of stuff that is kind of new to me because I was just kind of talking about earlier. I'm more of a sort of old school, kind of true, traditional heavy metal kind of guy.
Mm,
So there's, kind of almost like the second wave of new metal now, which is kind of back in fashion. You've kind of post metal, alt rock, um, you know, uh, Dead Memories, who are playing on the 18th, described themselves as Slam. I had to look it up. You know, it's it,
Yeah.
yeah. There's new stuff. There's you know, bands kind of including more kind of, you know, sort of electronica or kind of hip hop kind of beats and stuff. So it has changed, but a lot of it is now, you know, back to the staples. You know, Death, Trash,
Yeah.
Black. You know, one thing I maybe is we you know, we haven't had a lot of bands that kind of bring those Irish, you know, kind of traditional or kind of folk influences through in
Mm.
their music, which is really surprising because it is the kind of thing that goes down really well in Germany. You know, there were a lot of sort of Irish punk bands in Germany that do really well, but they're German bands playing in a sort of an Irish style.
Wow.
You know, so if we were able to sort of produce authentic ones over here, I
Yeah.
think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. Even after, because I have a different concept of what they're looking for now. Because I think I spoke to you about this again in the airport on the way back. Just that I went over with a preconception of, you know, oh, we'll head over and play X type of metal. But they really do have a particular type of metal that they just love. I don't want to use the word gimmick because I think that kind of lessens the quality of stuff, you know. But it's more they have to have that. There's like just a special kind of factor that they have. But yeah, for to steal your word there, if they could steal the Celtic vibe and kind of bring that over with them, I think that will go down like an absolute treat for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like the year you won it last year. I mean, looking at the lineup, I was looking at there like Psychosis, Lock Horns, Black Hole Divers, Snowblind, Neon Empire. They're all fucking serious bands. The fact that you had to do double duty on Psychosis just cracked me up at the time when I
Yeah.
saw it.
I actually had to do that a few times last year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was like I let Donnchadh speak on how hard it was for him to judge and stuff like that. But from us watching it, I was shocked when they actually called their name because the standard was incredible.
yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
it was really was on the night, and even like I expected it to be tough, but on the night watching everybody, yeah, it was just it was unreal to see. So absolutely elated when our name got called at the end of it. Um,
And how
'Cause
long did it take to sink in that you were actually going over there? Like, what was going through your head?
to be perfectly honest with you, like it didn't sink in until we flew over, and then we finally stepped in
Really?
front of the stage, and then it was
Fuck.
when you see because we've done other festivals and stuff, we did Bloodstock and things, and we kind of so I had as I was saying, a preconception as to what was going to happen when we got there, but this is on a whole different scale.
Mm,
This is just ginormous, and the scope of it all finally hit. Just the day before when we were standing in front of there's no one because we you get access to the stage just to have a quick look around kind of the day before. So we had popped in and had a quick walk around and just standing there looking out at an empty field. It was just it's unreal. And then the following day then to come in and see it full with people, you know, it's yeah, it's just it's a crazy feeling. So it was. I had a like I said a preconceived notion. I think we all did, and we spoke about it when we were kind of going over, and then that quickly went away the day before, and then afterwards we were like, my God, we were in kind of weird moods, I suppose. Afterwards, kind of not really realizing what had just happened. It took a while for everything to kick
mm.
in because the second we finished playing, they were interviewing me. Then, oh, how do you feel? You know, you're straight off the stage, and I was just handing over my guitar to the lads, and like so it was all just very quick, and then we're over to the next station. Then there was another interview then a little bit later. So
Yeah.
then we finally get to sit down and we're having a beer, and I think right then and there. And when all of the photos and the comments or your phone is hopping, and it was at that point I think I realized just how big it was. So I kind of was
Fucking
glad
hell.
that
It was almost delayed, like.
yeah, it was before that. It was just kind of like, ah, another gig, no problems, let's do this. So we were prepped, we were ready, we were like absolutely gunning to do this. So we feel we did ourselves proud, but it wasn't until afterwards we realized, holy moly, that could have gone like yeah, we could have really done damage to ourselves there. But no, it went across really well. But I don't feel like it kicked in until much later, the
Mm.
gravity of the
That's
situation.
interesting, like, because, like, managing those feelings, like, with the scale of it, like, did you genuinely feel out of your depth, or, like, were you more kind of
No, I felt.
interested in? Yeah,
comfortable.
good.
There was no,
Cool.
I
Cool.
was never super duper really, really nervous or anything. I don't really get that beforehand. I'd usually have a beer, a settler as I call it, before we play. I've always
Mm.
done it. It's just the one. And then we play, but it didn't, no, I just felt so comfortable, which was shocking to me, to be honest. And it was afterwards then looking back in the video, I was like, oh, I did do that. All right. Look at that.
Wow.
Because you're there and the stage is huge. Like I walk over towards Ado, who's on my right, and he has a completely different mix, like a completely different mix to what Dave has on my left. And then as you're walking through, it's just this phase, like a whoosh, as you're walking along, and they have cameras on tracks and coming down, arms coming down, just swinging around. So yeah, it's really bizarre. So you're trying to ignore all of that while focusing, trying to give the crowd a bit more, and then while also trying to cheekily get that shot, that you want for afterwards, where you're like, hey, there's the camera, what's up? Without being that person. So yeah, it was an interesting one for it all to kind of, and the first note. So our first one, literally Luke counts it in, and then it's a stab. We hadn't heard, so we only got to do a slight line check. So we only heard amp. We didn't hear what the monitor mix or anything like that was. So when we hit that first note, it was just fucking massive. You're just like, din, and yeah, it was at that
Wow.
point you're like, oh shit, this is so loud. So and
That's
then
crazy.
so hearing your voice just echo like and being able to be like, back in it's just yeah, it's cool. Very cool. And then I haven't actually watched, I've seen snippets of the footage. I haven't watched the whole footage back yet. So I think I'm the only one in the band that hasn't watched it yet.
Yeah,
Um,
because there's still nothing on it social media wise for me,
no,
which
we
is
have it.
interesting.
We have it. We've to pay for the license if we want to start distributing it and stuff. So we have a version of it
Okay.
that the lads
Okay.
have checked and stuff. But I'm chatting to Donnchadh now about getting the actual footage off them, and I think it comes with like audio stems and stuff, so we can do a bit of a mix on it. And
Okay.
yeah, so we'll do something professional with it. But we're dying to get that back now as well, so we can start to promote it.
Yeah. So Donnchadh, like, what does an Irish band that go to Wacken, what kind of experience do they get? Like, do they get the full artist experience or?
Yeah, that's literally it. Like so, they're there performing as part of the metal battle, but they're treated like any of the say the pro bands or the headline bands. They get picked up at the airport. So they arrive and there's a guy with the band's name on a sign. Taken with all their gear to the VIP backstage campsite. They get full artist catering. Some beer on the 2 days of the battle. The other thing they get, which I think is really important, is access to the backstage VIP kind of area, which is, as I said, at Wacken is huge, but it's full of other artists. Everybody is mixed in there together. Like they don't have a separate area for okay, for Axl Rose they do, but for most of the big bands, they're they're in the normal VIP area. So you can meet people. You can meet people in other bands. You can meet people working in industry, people in the media, booking agents, record label people. Now the scale of it is so big, you kind of need to know who you're looking for, kind of thing, or
Okay.
you need somebody maybe to do introductions and stuff. So you have to put a bit of thought into it beforehand. Or you can get lucky just kind of, stumbling around
We got
drunk and
really lucky talking about the bus that sorry to interrupt, but like just pick up on that note, the bus driver arrived and had the sign for us, and again we were like, oh, that's fucking nuts. So you get on the bus, there's a wee bucket of cans, and you can all sit there and kind of have the chats. And there was three other people on the bus with us. One of them was from Metal Hammer, one was from Kerrang, and I think the other guy was bouncing between the two magazines. So we just got to chat to them, and they were like, oh, we'll check your set out. I didn't realize you guys were playing, and so once we got chatting to them, and to be fair to them, they came, but they wouldn't have. I don't know if they would have come. Had we not have
Yeah.
been randomly bumped into them. And then two of them actually did a wee write up about us after the festival. So it's all, as he said, it can be luck at the draw as well. And then later on, when we were backstage, we bumped into them, and they were introducing us then to other people and to various magazines from different parts of the world. So, and then the fact that there's so many different countries involved in it, as Donnchadh mentioned there's avenues everywhere. So we're talking with other bands now about gig swaps and even talking about their local scene and who podcasts like this in their local area that we might be able to get in touch with. And so you build this wee little network if you're yeah, if you're that way inclined. Like so we were trying to get in touch with everybody and kind of build friendships and just, staying in communication with most of them for it. So which will be good. Hopefully that'll some things will come from that and in the future and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of bands would do that. They would make connections with other bands
Mm.
and do gig swaps, tour supports, things like that. So it's a bit of, what you make of it yourself in terms of, leveraging the kind of the networking opportunities that are there. The other thing that VAC can do as well is, and I hope I haven't frozen.
No, you're good.
Oh,
You
good.
could,
Okay. Willow's frozen.
oh, sorry.
Uh, the, the other thing that they do for bands is they hold these sort of advice clinics where the band can kind of book in during the kind of the 2 days of the battle and get a meeting with with a booking agent, with a manager, with somebody who does A&R for a label, with like a digital content strategist, different people working in the industry just to get advice,
Mm.
and say I'm thinking of doing this, or our band are thinking of doing this. What do you think? But also maybe make a connection that maybe down the road could be kind of useful as well. So it's when I talk to bands who are maybe kind of asking should they kind of do it, I will kind of point to the experience, going and playing a big outdoor festival, but also maybe the opportunities in terms of the kind of the doors that it might open. It's not whatever the thing, X Factor or American Idol or anything like that.
Mm.
No one's going to sort of make you the next Slipknot out of it. But it could open little doors for you, at some stage down the road.
Yeah. Let's talk about this year's finalists. So we've Dead Memories of from Wexford. I've seen them in Fred Zeppelin's. They're absolutely outstanding. Um, Numbskull Narrative. Letty, you've interviewed them, funnily enough. What a
Yeah.
coincidence. New Enemy, they're from Dublin. I haven't seen them live yet, but there's really good talk about them.
They've been
Nihilant,
doing a few things, I think, New Enemy. They've been playing quite a few gigs in around
yeah.
Fibbers and Sinead, I think.
Yes, have you come across them yet live, Letty? No.
Me? No, not yet. I've only
Mm,
known them for the amount they're doing from the gig guide. They're doing
okay.
quite a bit, same as Carnex. They seem to play together quite often.
Okay, cool. Nihilant from Belfast, who've just released an amazing EP. A big shout out to lads. Acid Age as well, an amazing band. Fantastic album. And then Morning of the Heretic from Derry, are the last ones there. So, like, there's a nice mix there, Donnchadh.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm not saying that, there have been years in the past where we've been kind of struggling to find a kind of selection of good bands, but I think this year, I'm really excited about some of the bands that are
Mm,
there. I think all of them I could see going over and doing a very good job at Wacken. Maybe one or two there's a question mark around, have they maybe the experience or that sort of ability to kind of lift it to the next level because they're new or whatever. But the reason that they're on the lineup is because I think there's something about each of them
yeah.
that makes them worthy of going over and representing Ireland.
Aidan, what advice would you give any of the six bands that are heading into the final if they're watching this?
So the Douglas he's done a good job this year in the diversity, I think, of it as well.
Mm,
Um, which so it'll be the juxtaposition going from one to the rest will kind of speak for itself. But
yeah.
just practice, have your set like nailed. Try avoid the um I suppose the stuff that might happen. Definitely don't be tuning your guitar in between songs, that kind of stuff. Just come with a professional attitude. Play your set. I don't worry about intros and stuff like that. That's going to take away from your time, and it won't really add a huge amount. I wouldn't say. So your best bet, and Donny can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Like, but your best bet for me would just be to come and play the actual songs to the best of your ability. Try do a bit of crowd participation at the same time. But it's just important that you represent yourself well. and it's, I suppose there'll be elements of everything of your game would be looked at. So yeah, for us, we just focused on the set, the live set, and how we blend from one song to the next, and particular breaks and in between, how the I would sync with Luke on particular items, and trying to transition between the areas, and make sure that the whole, it wasn't just one song into the next, that the whole set was thought about, and the running order of the songs and how we went and how we finished was a massive thing for us, was how we finished the set as well, to leave an absolute emphasis at the end that there was no doubt. Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Donnchadh?
Yeah, I would. I would add as well. You know, bring a crowd if you can. And I'm not just saying that from a promoter perspective, but it makes such a difference, when you see the band interacting, with their fans, hopefully, if they brought people along with them that know the songs. I remember Black Hole Divers last year, they brought sort of, a big bunch of
Yeah.
Brazilians with them, who were in a party mood, and it just kind of lifted everything in the venue during their set, and they came very close, I think they ran Aesect very close in the end,
Yeah, it's one of
because
the
of
things
that
that
kind
had
of
us worried as well. Yeah, for sure. It's like, 'cause
yeah,
for us,
yeah.
we've like a Dublin-based band. You think we'd have a fair amount of people there, but we didn't. There wasn't a huge turnout for us in the evening of it. But Black Hole Divers, man, they have a cohort to go with them, and there's so much crack. Have you seen them live, Richie?
Not yet, but
Uh,
I've actually watched them on YouTube.
Yeah, they're
Um,
great, and the crowd
Live
always
looks
gets into
amazing.
them,
Yeah,
and yeah. It's always fun to watch. So anytime I get the chance, I go to see them if I can. Like, but yeah, so that was one of the things that had us worried for sure, because you can't deny it. Like that is, it's electrifying. Like you do enjoy watching it and being around it as well. Like so,
Yeah. And
mm,
the other thing I would add is very importantly as well, for if you're going to play a festival in Germany, start on time and finish on time. Because they're very strict on that. So
sure are.
it's a small thing and probably an obvious thing, but yeah, it does also, I think, maybe impact some of the decisions made.
yeah. I mean, like, do you often come across bands, Donnchadh, that have played in this metal battle, and do you like maybe even past winners, and do you often see how it has impacted their careers? I mean, I think Aura have gone from strength to strength since winning the battle. Was that 2 years ago now? Was it 2024? I think it might have been. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, like it's funny. A lot of the bands, or not a lot of the bands, maybe half of the bands that have won it from Ireland since the start, are sort of now defunct. They've stopped for whatever reason. I think that's bands. There's a very high attrition rate in bands.
Yeah.
People join bands when they're young, and they change as people, as they get older. Life kind of gets in the
Hmm.
way, families, whatever it is, they start fighting, who knows. But yeah, a lot of the bands, kind of don't have that sort of longevity. But certainly, like Ure is probably a good example. I think there is in Dread as well.
Yeah.
Kind of kicked on a bit. They're doing a lot of touring now. And what I think a lot of bands take from the Wacken experience, and it's because some of them have said it to me, is like it really energizes them. They've been given a taste of what it is like to kind of be a professional artist and to play at a big festival, and they want it again. And they come away going, I'm really going to prioritize, the band
Mm.
now,
Getting back to
music,
that, yeah.
trying to kick on to the next level. And okay, that's just kind of one factor, but I think that is a major benefit for bands, that they have that energy kind of coming away from it.
Yeah. I mean, Aesect now, Aidan, the mindset after playing Wacken, like, do you think it has changed a bit?
Yeah, for sure. Like it definitely motivated us. Like, because at that point we were looking to record the album, but our once we kind of got into the final for this, we changed our focus then back to the live set rather than the studio mindset. So we
Interesting.
got back into performing again, because they're very different in that when you go into the studio, you're focusing very much on like one single riff and how you play it sitting down, kind of you want to nail the performance of it. For us anyway, and then a live setting is totally different. You as I said, you're focusing on like your stage presence, your crowd interactions in between sections of the song, and how the set flows from one thing to the next. You know, you can't end it this way because you do the other song ends that way a little further down. So your mindset's totally different on the live set. But for us, it just motivated us in that way. And then all we wanted to do was to continue playing live sets. And then so we did Wacken, then we did Scream for Me, and then the Siege. Then we got to close out the Siege, which is
Class.
again another one of the highlights for us last year. We really enjoyed that, and we're super thankful for the opportunity. But at that point, then we were like, okay, now we need to focus and produce an album because there has to be some sort of continuity here. You can't
Yes.
just continue on. So the album's been written, as you know, for an incredibly long time. We've re-recorded bits, we've taken bits and put it back together, but we are now 100% focused on getting the album out and then looking to do a wee tour to promote that. Then hopefully in Ireland and abroad then as well. We're in talks with some of the guys to hopefully try and bring ourselves over there when it's out.
Nice. Nice.
Your performance was excellent at the Siege, by the way. I caught, say, 15, 20 minutes of it. My
Oh,
only thing
super.
was it ran so late.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we didn't like as in we went overtime or just it was at 1 in the morning.
I think it was a knock-on effect from one of the bands earlier. I think they were late, and then it was a knock-on to all of them.
Was it? I didn't even realize that we went on later then. I just remember it was one-ish
Ooh.
thereabouts, and it
I
was
think you were due on at 12:30 and you went on at 1, but I think
yeah,
one of the bands earlier on the
had
main
gone
stage,
on.
they ran over and then it was knock on, knock on, knock on, knock
Yeah.
on.
We were just grateful that people stuck around, you know, because obviously at that time everyone's just had a skinful and they're all having the crack, you know. So we were so grateful for people to stick around, and then the interaction between them and stuff. It just gave us the energy to continue going, you know, because it was, as you say, it was half 1 in the morning, and I double duty, so I was playing I think half 9 with Psychosis, I think it was,
Yeah.
or 10 o'clock in the upstairs stage. So to have the high of that and then to come back down, then change your game, and you know you're going from being a guitarist on one side then to being the front man in the next one, you know. So
Yeah.
it's almost in some ways it's easier when it's the other way around, you know, because you're the guitar wise you don't have to focus on you know, singing and being the front man. So it's a little bit yeah. So I was worried that the voice wouldn't hold out, but no, everything seemed to go well. I was really happy with that performance. So
Yeah. I'm gutted I missed it. I would have been at front and center, Ed, if I was
uh,
there.
no doubt, no doubt.
Letty, do you think one day an Irish band could possibly headline Wacken?
One day, given the quality of music that the little country is producing, definitely 100%. It might take 10, 15 years, but I'd say maybe we're harboring the next Metallica or next Iron Maiden.
Hmm. Like, do you think there's enough support for metal bands in Ireland, or are bands still fighting an uphill battle, Donnchadh?
I think it's much better than it was, and I think it's improving all the time, and I think that will create opportunities, and I think the sort of the growth of social media, things like podcasts, are going to be huge because for years we had no media of our own. We relied on the British magazines, whereas every other country had its own kind of metal magazines. Uh, so it's things like that. But I also think there's a lot of things going on in Ireland that are really good and maybe sort of not noticed or underappreciated. The Cruachan are playing Wacken this year for the first time. They've been knocking around for 30
Yeah.
years. And nobody in Ireland kind of seems to know. They can draw a crowd within their own kind of fan base. But really, they should be a lot bigger. Primordial have played a Wacken a number of times. Gamma Bomb have played. There was an interesting band that I wasn't aware of, an Irish band that I discovered were playing last year, Miracle of Sound,
Yeah,
um, who I think are from Cork actually, or
yeah, yeah,
What?
based in Cork. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, this was a big surprise. So I think they make sort of metal for kind of computer game soundtracks, and have kind of become very big from that. So they played in the kind of the medieval area at Wacken, the Wackinger village, which kind of is a little arena of its own. It was about 10,000, and it was full.
Fucking
Because I went
hell.
up there to get something to eat, and I saw them. And I couldn't believe it. Like, and people were singing along, knew all the words. You can, if you put it into Google, Miracle of Sound at Wacken, you'll see.
Jesus.
And yeah, but like, I don't know what kind of crowd they would draw in Ireland or what sort of size venues they would play in, but like they seem to be huge over at
Oh,
Wacken.
I'd be there for sure. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Never heard of them.
Yeah, yeah. Neither had I until Wacken.
Had they Cork accents, had they? What's the
Yeah, well,
story?
I think there's a few different accents in Cork.
There is, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Aidan, with the Irish metal scene, I've been doing it for the last 7 years. Like, do you think the Irish metal scene is too supportive to the point where kind of real criticism gets lost, maybe? Are
Um,
we afraid to
well,
even criticize our bands?
I don't know. I think people in some ways, if they don't have a good word to say about the band, they generally just stay quiet about them. You know, you
Yeah.
won't hear people talk about a band that they're not into essentially. But for the most part, everybody's really good, even if it's not the
Mm,
genre you're into. Game recognizes game. You know, so if
yes.
somebody's on top form, you can't really fault them for it. You know, they're just and although there can be like envy across the board, I don't think it comes into the realm of like backstabbery or holding people,
No,
dragging people
not
down, or
really, no.
and nobody's kind of riding on the tailcoats of any other band. They all seem to be doing their own thing without impeding other bands in it, which is as Donnchadh said, it's in such a good place at the moment. So I'm delighted to be part of the scene at the moment because of this, and every other band that raises their profile just motivates us to want to do the same, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's what I'd say about the Irish
yeah.
scene at the moment.
That's good to hear, man, because sometimes you can't see the wood from the trees, especially doing the podcast, like,
Yeah.
we're trying to support so many bands out there, giving them a platform through the podcast, and going to see him play live as well is always such a positive for me, and getting to hear their music. But I often wonder, like, do we just miss stuff there that other maybe people from other countries might just kind of go, hang on a while, they're not that great,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's going to be bias towards the people you're friends with and or the same, the
Mm.
things you grew up with as well. That's always going to be the case, So I think, like the local promoters will obviously try and promote their local scene as much as possible, and they'll always end up getting more of the better slots as opposed to a band coming from, say, for a band coming from Dublin trying to get a slot in Limerick. It's going to go to the Limerick band first, and that's fair enough. They're deserved. They've come up in that scene you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it's as you say, trying to be aware of, being self-aware of that is also is great. And I don't think it is as bad as it may have been years and years ago. I think now those positions are there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or because even having played with the likes of Psychosis and stuff, we've come down to Limerick and played support to some of the larger bands coming through as well. So I can't
So yeah, that's
can't
true.
fault it there.
Mm.
And we're a Dublin-based band, and we've played Cork, Limerick, everywhere really.
Yeah,
So.
so like that's why the likes of these competitions are really important for keeping the scene alive, don't it, aren't they, really?
Um, they are, but I'm not sure they play a role in keeping the scene alive as such. I
Well,
think
they
they're more
offer
maybe.
prestige for sure, like even Metal to the Masses, getting to Bloodstock. Bands obviously can choose a different route in their career that certainly don't enter the likes of those competitions. But, it generates a buzz, certainly, in the scene for the likes of Wacken
Yeah,
and Bloodstock. I
I think
would,
the point I was going to make is they are a bit of a reflection of the quality that's going on in the scene. As I said, with the Wacken Metal Battle and with Metal to the Masses as well. Like, there are opportunities that the Irish scene should be taking and kind of maximizing, because
hmm
we can push a band out into a massive platform in another country. Um, but I think a lot of what goes on in the scene is a lot more kind of important. And there are fantastic things happening, in the scene. And I think, it'd be very interesting to see where it is in kind of another 10 years. Because I think it is going in the right direction. There's a lot of growth. I was thinking there when you're asking me about the last question about an Irish band potentially headlining back, and like, you never know with this sort of thing. When I was watching Gojira at Wacken last year, They made the point that they had played it a number of times, when they were a much smaller band, and they never realized that, someday they would be headlining it. Like they dreamt it, but they never expected it. Neither would anybody have expected maybe, 20 years ago that, France would produce a sort of, a band of that size and scale, the
Yeah.
scale that you're at now. So it's, you never know what's going to come, but it's important that, kind of things are happening now that can be built on.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Letty, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just have a quick question for Donnchadh, if that's okay.
Yeah, work with it.
What is the biggest learning curve that you've experienced from running this metal battle competition?
Biggest learning curve. Um, Geez, that's kind of probably a question I should have thought of before because I'm
Good
struggling
on
to
you,
think of
Letty.
the answer. I mean, the thing that so like everybody I think in the scene, like I do this in my spare time, and the amount of effort I can put into it is very much dependent on the other things that are happening in my life. So like I'll come back from Wacken in August and I'll be raring to go with the metal battle again. But there's usually a bit of a delay before they're kind of ready. They've finalized the countries that are going to be involved, because Ireland doesn't get a slot every year. So by the time they come around to, sort of agreeing that we can kind of go ahead and launch, I'm probably back into my busy season in work or something. And, some of the sort of energy and enthusiasm has kind of waned, and I end up sort of behind where I should be. So probably just allocating kind of time to it. And sometimes it's maybe something I end up feeling guilty about it because I know all of the bands put a huge amount of time in, and I feel if I'm not giving 100% or if I can't give 100%, then I'm sort of leaving them down. So that's a kind of a general kind of life lesson. If you're going to do something, do it well, put the time into it. And that's why I might use the opportunity as well to say, like, I've been doing this since 2011, and I'm mostly, with the exception of a bit of, a hand now and again from people chipping in, I mostly do it by myself. So if there is anybody listening and they're interested in getting involved, in the future, get in touch. We are taking a break again next year in 2027. We come back in 2028. Because of the amount of countries that are in the metal battle now, we are being put into a region with the UK, which would mean we
Oh,
will not have a slot every year. We will alternate with the UK, which isn't too bad. What I was worried about was that we would have to compete in the kind of Ireland and UK final, and then the winner of that would go to Wacken. But no, we will have a slot at Wacken. It's just it'll be every second year,
okay.
which is okay. So we'll be there, 5 years out of 10. Um,
Yeah.
so if somebody wants to get involved in the future, as I said, the next one will be in 2028. Get in touch. I'd certainly be glad of the help.
Where do I sign up?
But like, Donnchadh, so we'll just wrap this now, with it coming up on the 18th of April. Have you any final message to Irish metal fans and bands thinking of entering in the next year or two? Well, obviously 2028,
Yeah,
isn't
it'd
it?
be for 2028. Yeah, I mean, I've always thought there were bands, and I think you mentioned it already. There are bands there that kind of, they don't want to be involved in a kind of battle of the bands type, of competition.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes those are bands that I think would be very, very suited to it and should kind of consider it. So I think, talk to the likes of Willow, talk to the likes of the lads in Nura, talk about, the experience they've had, and just kind of consider it. And particularly any bands that are playing, as I said, a type of metal that, fuses a little bit of Irish, kind of influence, originality, kind of, folk, or, kind of cultural or historical elements. I think we're sort of crying out for that kind of thing.
Mm.
But yeah, I would say, give it a shot.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. So big shout out to the bands that are playing again: Dead Memories, Nihilant, Acid Age, Morning of the Heretics, Numbskull, Narrative, and New Enemy. Best of luck, lads, and it's going to be spicy. Are you going to be there yourself, Ed, on the night?
Yeah, we're definitely going to show up and show some support for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's only fair, you know, and then to be able to answer any questions and stuff that anybody has, we'll be there to help them out for sure.
Yeah, great stuff. So thanks everybody for joining me tonight. Letty, Donnchadh and Aid, and best of luck with it, Donnchadh. Long may it continue. Love what you're doing, and I suppose as I always end it crucially, support your local metal scene.
For sure. Thanks, Richie.
Thanks, Richie. Thanks for the support. Best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you.